Hey, welcome to another episode of the Startup Voyage podcast. And on this episode, we're going to peel back the layers of global business strategy and innovation. At the center of it all is Bennett Baer, a man who has been at the forefront of some of the most significant growth stories in tech and telecom. As a five-time chief marketing officer and four-time CEO, Bennett has navigated uncharted territories, building brands that have left a lasting mark on the global stage. Now, during his time at Huawei, Bennett oversaw the company's explosive growth, taking it to new heights across markets in Asia, Africa, and beyond. With over 1,500 products launched and 77 billion in new revenue generated, Bennett's leadership was nothing short of transformative. But what's even more fascinating is what Bennett has been up to since his time at Huawei. Today, Bennett continues to shape the future of business as an advisor to emerging tech companies and startups. He's deeply involved in driving innovation in areas like AI, blockchain, and Web3. And that's why he's joining the show. Working with companies that are on the cutting edge of these technologies, his experience, both past and present, makes him one of the most influential voices in today's digital landscape. So we're about to explore how Bennett scaled one of the largest telecom brands in the world and what lessons today's entrepreneurs can take from his journey. So welcome to the show, Bennett.
Thank you, Arthur. It's great to be here.
Great, great. Benny, let's start off with your time at Huawei. And under your leadership, the company expanded and grew its market share to reach billions of people globally. And let's start where maybe you can talk about what was the key scaling to a brand like Huawei, because it's quite big. And how do you keep a company of that size nimble enough to adapt to rapidly changing market and technology that's coming into play?
Well, Huawei was a bit unique in my experience. Most of the organizations, British Telecom, Infonet, Unisys, they were large organizations in trouble.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my business work has been as an entrepreneur, coming up with something to turn it around, doing startup within a large organization. Huawei was already successful. They were doing, I think, 32 billion at the time when I joined them. They wanted to go faster. And you want to go faster? Okay. But you have to change to do that. And in the little over 3 years I was with them, we managed to get over, I think, to about 107 billion. The first thing it was, okay, what's important? Brand or money. And the Huawei board is kind of unique. It's not telecom guys. It's not technology people. They're business men and women from all over Asia. And the questions you ask, if say, oh, I want to go spend $10 million developing a new, server. Yeah, okay. But I could take $10 million and I can go buy a vineyard in Chile. What is going to give me a better return on my investment?
Right.
It's return on working capital, which most marketers aren't disciplined to talk about. I categorize myself as a product marketer first. So the first thing I looked at was, okay, we're in mobile phones. We're the fifth largest mobile phone producer in the world, and nobody knows who we are because every AT&T phone, branded phone, was made by Huawei. Maybe it's time to go out under our own brand. That was step one. Step two was a lot of Huawei, all the salespeople had this in their head. And I have been over in the years in Bangladesh and Afghanistan. I was a customer of Huawei. I was a competitor of Huawei at a number of my tenures. So I knew them quite well from a different perspective. And they only sell Huawei stuff. That doesn't work too well. You got to partner. You got to figure out where and how you fit. And so I explained to him, look, it's a very simple mathematical formula. Hardware plus software plus smart people equals something unique. Now, what are you doing? Yeah, okay, if I started out with, we made a server that ran SAP HANA 8 times faster than Cisco for a third of the cost. Okay. I know the SAP guy, so I got on a plane, went to Germany because I ran their network at Infonet, went to go see him and say, hey, look at what we can do. How about we give this to you to sell to your partners under your brand? I don't care. I want the money. So that was part of the transformation. The other part in a huge way was culture.
Mm.
And they had a very dysfunctional culture. First off, Huawei has 3 CEOs. They get a new CEO every 18 months. The reason for that is there are 3 technology universities in China, kind of a Caltech, MIT, and Huawei University. And so there are 3 cliques. Doesn't matter if you're white, doesn't matter if you're brown or yellow, doesn't matter if you're man or woman. Where did you go to school? And Arthur, if you get promoted, then I go along with you. So what Mr. Ren, the owner, it's employee owned, but he basically started and owns it. What he did is he rotates that every 18 months so that no one clique can take over the strategy and the course and all the management positions. And that's a very clever thing for other people to do. It's kind of like IBM. You know, if you're a VP in IBM, every 2 years you get a new assignment.
Right.
And they like to send you to every part of the business so that before you can advance to the next level. And that's how they weed out and find their division presidents and C-suite people.
Right. Right.
But the culture was rather dysfunctional because middle management disliked expats like us, but senior management knew that we were necessary evils. And so their style of management was yell and scream. Well, that doesn't work too well with 20-somethings. And you could see in the meetings, you could see the people, you could see where the lights were on and the lights were off. And at the end of it, I would go pick out the young people that you could see the lights were on. And you'd say, hey, what'd you think of what the big boss said? Well, yes, I agree. Let's go to lunch. And through the course of the conversation, say, look, 10 years, you're going to be the boss. Do it different. It was changing that culture to think entrepreneur in more of an entrepreneur fashion. The other thing, the first day they invited me in and to address, my marketing staff was 4,800 and I was dotted line to 60,000 engineers. And they said, here's Bennett Graham Poobah. He invented, the first global voice over IP business, the first digital camera, the first mobile app store, yada, 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 Graham Poobah. And I got up there and said, hi, I'm wrong half the time. You have to figure out which half. And that the room was silent. No Guilo would come in, foreign devil, and falling on their swords. So I said, hey, look, I'm going to question everything you do, but you have to question me. Mm-hmm. And if I can't answer it, maybe we shouldn't be going that way. But together, we're going to go figure it out. And so it was mostly a cultural shift in their mindset, in what they're doing and how they're doing.
Okay. Well, you mentioned that you were a product marketer first, and I think that's one of the areas that gets ignored quite a bit in the Web3 space, where people are coming up with the pitch deck, an idea, trying to raise some money, and then what happens after that? They are trying to figure out, what to build, and then quite often they don't end up building what they say they're going to build, and they're not really, focusing on the product first. They're focusing on, let's build a community. Let's see if there's customers or partners willing to work with us, and then almost validating why they should build anything at all. So what is your advice to these early stage when they try to go to market with a vaporware, if you want to call it, a vapor idea, which, that's what some people do, right? They pitch the idea before and to validate there's something there before they put money into it. What do you think?
Yeah, not enough time spent. And this is where, again, as an intrapreneur, I had to go through so many more hoops than an entrepreneur. So, okay, I got to convince the board to give me money. I got to convince, everybody else to get in. The biggest question is, all right, let me back up. At Casio, where I first learned my trade, the Japanese teach you to do, a product marketer to do 2 things. Ask why 5 times.
5 whys.
The other
I've heard of this.
Yeah. Oh, it works. And then the other one is go and see. Don't read some stupid report. out of Gartner that, the market CAGR is going to be 15.8%.
Yeah.
No. Go talk to people. And I've done that throughout my career. If I landed in, Jakarta in Indonesia, first thing I drop my bags, I go to the local mall and I'd go talk to the kids shopping in the phone store. Oh, what phone are
Right.
you using? Why? Why'd you buy that one? What apps do you have on your phone? Cool. What
Yeah.
games? Why are you playing them? Ask why. And the largest one is, who wants to sell this? Why? Because if you don't have that, you're dead.
Right.
And
Right.
and again, you made a very key point in your statement, in your question. Most business, 74.6% of business in the world is business to business.
Yeah.
Business to business, digital marketing doesn't matter who. It's about personal relationships. Brand doesn't matter. It's about personal relationships. And so, 99% of the stuff you read about marketing doesn't apply to B2B. It's a very different animal. And so not enough time is spent on who wants this, why, who wants to sell this, why. Those are the two biggest. And I'll give you an example. I was at Unisys, and one of my guys came up with and Unisys was, Sperry and Burroughs, two $7 billion companies. They collapsed together and they managed to lose $7 billion. So they were, a giant that was in trouble. So in comes Bennet and they say, okay, you're going to take over the mobile stuff. We don't know what to do. We'll give you 2 people and no budget. Go figure it out. I also had a $380 million business that I had to run, the legacy messaging business. So I looked around and I said, okay, what is Unisys? It's every bank, every government, every airline in the world. Okay, good base. And one of my guys had figured out, we can put an RFID tag on a piece of luggage and track it end to end. That's pretty cool. So I went to go see the president of the transportation division and said, we can track every piece of luggage end to end. Huh. Can you sell that? No. Talk some more. Why not? Okay. He's not going to get credit for it. Okay. So if I gave you all the revenue credit, will you sell it? No. Ended up being, if it cost him nothing and he got all the credit, he would tell his guys, because they were already making their number, their quota, selling what they were selling. So why take on something new? Again, who wants to sell it? Why? I don't need to sell. I'm making $1 million a year selling, tape storage backup. Why do I need to go sell this mobile stuff?
Exactly.
And so,
exactly.
those questions. So what, I ended up saying is, look, we'll keep a shadow set of books, so at the end of the year, we can, we both work for the same mothership. And at the end of the year, I can tell them how much I helped you contribute. Is that okay? Okay. And that's how, tracking baggage started. It was early adopter stuff, and it was $5 a bag. And we figured out how to make it better. And then other guys made it cheaper, and we lost the business. But it was, it was a good start.
Okay. All right. That's good. I guess, in your career then at Huawei, you're looking at, from a product marketer's point of view, which you've probably launched thousands of products and services over the course of your whole career. Then what would you say, for a startup, they often they don't know where to start, or they start building something, they get some feedback and they start updating features, whether or not they really need it or not, don't know. They figure out that later. And maybe they continue building something that's not really relevant to the market at that point in time. Sometimes it is timing too. So what do you think would be your advice when it's to managing product development at scale? Like, how do you, let's say you've got limited resources, you've got maybe a team of, maybe a couple of product marketers and 8 developers, and you're trying to develop something. What was the mindset? Where would you start? Where do these guys start to make sure they're mostly efficient with how they spend their time to build a product?
Yeah. And again, the training at Casio was invaluable. Boy, that was just because Casio makes more money keeping the factory busy then all of the watches and calculators and other stuff. And I started a business communications division. I launched the world's first digital camera and the first video conferencing products. And that's a great example. So Casio's position, we talk, the QB10, the world's first digital camera. Okay, that's pretty cool. We had a huge launch at CES. Great idea, but you got to look around. And so Casio's position is sell where the other guy isn't. There's Sony across the, not across the street, but basically across the street. And what is Sony? It's Game Boy, it's Nintendo, it's adolescent teenage boys. Who's selling stuff to little girls?
Yeah.
So I came out with basically the digital sender was an infrared text messaging, I like you, you like me, go across the room. Simple stuff. So where are the other guys and how easy is it for them to catch up? And that, especially if you're in software or an online portal, that's really hard to be unique. And I've only had 27 uniques in my career. So, take something like the digital camera. Okay, I'm first. But I knew the Sony monster was 6 months at best behind me, and they were going to run me over like a dump truck. What we did do is we had invested very heavily in the TFT, the little screen on the back of the camera. So I went over to go see the Sony guys and said, hey, how about I make the TFTs for you? And we made more money selling the TFTs than we ever did selling cameras in the entire history of the product run at Casio. So again, is it about brand? Is it about, market share, or is it about making money?
Yeah.
And if you're in B2B, again, most business, it's about making money and it's long term. So it's looking around and being very careful about your positioning. The other thing is KISS. Keep it simple, sweetheart. When I launched the LT70P video phone, I sent one to the Casio CEO. He used it once. Now, this ran at 14.4. It would drop down to 9.6 baud, which is probably most of the people listening to this don't remember how slow things used to be. So it was not like this. It was a new picture updated every 2.5 seconds. Slideshow. And I knew I had a problem. It was not going to work. And the other test is I gave it to my mother-in-law to try, and she had a hard time with it. This is not the grandma and grandpa phone. So I got hired. I pulled the launch 10 days into the job. Everybody thought I was crazy. They did launch in Japan. I couldn't control that. They had a disaster. They had built 60,000 units for the initial test. They sold 2 units, which were returned. I repositioned it as a business-to-business tool for who wants to see a show and tell. For the time, it was high res. Okay, product marketers talking to, the product groups, distance learning, those kinds of apps went real well, and we sold 8,000. The other thing is setting an appropriate executive expectation. When they said, okay, Bennett-san, how many are you going to sell? I said 3,000. And I had a shadow by that time from the Casio board. And he said, Bennett-san, how do you sell 3,000? I said, there are 3,000 stupid rich people in North America. And we sold 9,000 of them. And they thought I was just a hero. And okay, now I got more money. I got more people. The beginning of scaling goes into success breeds more, but it only comes with discipline. And those are lessons, again, I learned earlier and took with me to Huawei. You don't get to grow until you've got so much revenue and so much profit per head. And it's different if you're in software or hardware or a network service. But at Infonet, which were network services, I had to have at least 750 million in revenue before I could add another head to my team.
Right.
So sell more and grow.
Would you argue then, regardless if you're B2B, B2C, as you mentioned, business is there to make money. So if you are in early stages and, sometimes you need to just focus on what will make you money now. if you've got a product that is, let's say, visionary and you don't know if it's going to go mainstream or it's something that you're building for the future, the reality is you need money now. Oh, yeah, sure, you can raise money. You raise money, it'll last you only so long before you have to raise again. At some point, you need to figure out how to make money. So that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I often see for many businesses is that the thought is, oh, eventually we'll make it. Or they'll respond by saying, look at Slack. They didn't show any revenue for many years, and look at their valuation. So, I mean, what is the reality when it comes to, at least in the tech space, where people are building companies and trying to get these valuations and just to raise more money rather than actually trying to figure out what the revenue model is? And I just find it quite surprising that some people don't even care where the revenue is going to come from.
And that's a mistake, and it gives everybody a black eye. I have a lot of examples on this. The old adage, when you launch, whatever you think your revenue is, cut it in half. Whatever you think your costs are, double it. If you still have a business, okay, proceed.
Yeah.
And one of the examples is, it's not, I don't highlight it on my CV. I worked for a guy in Indiana who had a really great search capability, but he's going up against Google.
Okay.
And he had 100 software engineers, and it was a good search capability. However, you're up against Google. It ain't gonna work. And so, he had things like a pixel capture. And okay, this is good, but there are other guys in the market doing something similar. And so, and again, he'd been in business for 7 years, no customers, no revenue. He was literally raising money every single week, and he was burning cash. He had a 200,000 monthly nut. And so as a marketer, the first thing is like, okay, show me the books. No, show me the real books. And so you take a look at that and say, okay, we don't need this. Okay, let's go talk to somebody about the healthcare. And we cut down the monthly spend to about, I think, 125,000. But he was still literally raising money from grandma and grandpa because he wanted to maintain control. Classic mistakes. And he'd been at it 7 years. I mean, I wouldn't have any hair left, much less turning gray. So I took bits of their technology and I said, look, I know somebody over at Time Warner that really could use this. I know someone at Microsoft that could use this. And I know someone over here, that could use that.
Right.
And then we had 3 licensing deals, and now he's making $500,000 a year. Again, what do you want? The company that you described is a Huawei. They want to do everything themselves. They want to dominate the market. They want to, go be the next Google. That is a 1 in a billion shot. How about we, get our feet on the ground, making a profit, and then scaling is easy.
Right.
And I can talk about scaling ad nauseum, especially from a product marketing perspective. But it's that they don't get it right from the beginning, and it goes back to who wants this, why, who wants to sell it, why. That tells you your marketing story. That talks to your customer journey, and it solves a lot of your problems.
Right. Well, I guess how much validation is then to validate those whys? Where do you get that information to answer your whys? Do you do a lot of market research?
Go build a straw man and go talk to the people who are going to sell it. Go talk to the people who are going to buy it. As many as possible. Now, I had a wonderful mentor, Bill Heron, who recently passed. He ran new business at Kimberly-Clark. So this is a guy who started Depends. You know how Depends came about? He's my father-in-law.
Okay.
So Depends, diapers for senior citizens. My wife was a nursing student at university, and she came home late at night. She had an assignment working in a senior's home, and her dad asked, how'd your day go? And she described it and how sad it was. These seniors were soiling themselves. Incontinence, light bulb. That's where depends comes from. And he wrote, his business plan was 3 pages, followed by 700 pages of documentation. And it said, we're going to lose $7 billion for the first 5 years, and then we're going to make a profit and it'll take off.
Right.
He made a profit in the second year, setting executive expectation. I learned a lot from him. His ad agency was Ogilvy and Mather. Went to go see him, and he had, I think, a $14 million budget, which in 83 or 4, whenever this was a lot of money. He had 28 people on his ad team. And, Mr. Heron, this is wonderful. Afterwards, 3 people came up to him and said, thank you. My mom has the problem. That's your marketing statistics.
Right.
That tells you, okay, out of 28 people, 3 are going to need this. That's the kind of granular knowledge you need to develop before you launch, before you get your scope of work that you're going to build. And then don't let scope creep come in and keep adding features. Do that in the next revision.
Okay.
KISS, keep it simple.
Keep it
Make
simple.
sure
Keep
your mother-in-law can use it.
Well, that's what it's so funny here after a while in people in tech are saying, oh, if your mother can understand blockchain or RPC or APIs, then you're good.
Yeah, and another problem is if you're trying to do something new, and a lot of what I've done is emerging technology.
Right.
Trying to educate the market is really hard, really expensive, and takes a long time. Don't do it. I've only seen one opportunity in my entire 40 years, and that was mobile phones that met the criteria that could be a Google.
Right.
And those meetings were very hard to convince, and it was the adoption of SMS, short messaging service.
Right.
Back in 2000. But it really took off. And that's the only time I've ever seen that take off. Most of the time it's very hard. And it's kind of funny, in prep for this last week, we had communicated and talking about Web.3, and I addressed 100 grad students in accounting. I said, oh, hey guys, how many of you are interested in blockchain?
Right.
Out of 100 heard the term, didn't know what it was. How many of you have heard of Web.3? Huh? 1 had heard the term. How many have heard of crypto? About 60 hands went up, and they were all negative. They were all FTX. This is where the bad guys are. This is nefarious. That we're accounting majors, grad students, and you don't go there.
Yeah.
Negative, negative, negative. Very hard to become the next big thing if people don't know you exist.
Right.
Yeah. Take this from a guy who's launched a lot of, I did the world's first mobile app store, Moso. It was WAP technology. Yeah, cool idea. I didn't capitalize on it.
Right.
Which kind of goes back to Huawei and the Chinese. Their idea of product marketing is let you go invent that next great thing. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to make it cheaper and better. And then I'm going to win the market. And that's a pretty successful formula. And it's not to be underestimated, because that is the way most Chinese companies do business. Look at, solar panels and a lot of other things.
So what do you suggest these companies that are trying to be innovative in early stages? And a lot of them are saying the same thing, like, oh, part of our marketing or part of our strategy, branding, whatever they're trying to build, is to understand who we want to target, but then also how to tell the story, which is a lot of it is the story is education, right? Like educating them, and quite often, like you said, it takes a really long time for things to go mainstream. So you're saying don't do it at all, or focus on yeah.
And again, you're talking to a guy who never had a big budget,
Right?
Never. Even at Huawei, a $650 million budget, but that's across 946 product lines. 600 million didn't go very far on a global basis. So first rule of thumb is you got a partner. And this goes back to how, and so think of branding. Okay, you've got your brand. Look at blockchain. if I was starting a blockchain, and I did blockchain at Huawei, we played with it. We did a lot with it in 2012, 2013, mostly for supply chain applications, because we had a lot of the multinationals and the telcos to sell to their multinationals. And it really didn't go anywhere. It didn't catch on. It was too difficult. Why do we need this? Why do we need to do something different? What's in it for me?
Right.
That's another one to ask.
Yeah.
Look at it from the other guy's shoes. What is in it for me?
Right.
And ask that. But if I was doing blockchain today, I would do two things. I would go out under my own brand. We'll get back to that. And then I would try to find a partner. I would go talk to Chase Bank or, never the big guy. Go talk to the number 2, number 3, number 4, because they want to become the big guy and they're more likely to partner. They need you. So why is blockchain good for a bank? Why does it make them more trusted with their customers? And then you be the engine underneath. And hopefully you get, your brand or logo in the corner if you're lucky. If not, fine, take the money. And under a different price point, a different go-to-market, launch it, the same product, do a different skin on it, but launch it under your own brand.
Right.
The other thing is find the education part under your own brand. Find ways to be clever, because if you don't have money, and I never had money, so I had to be controversial without being quantifiable. So I'll give you an example. That search engine company I worked for a time, I would get myself invited. Now I've been a keynote speaker at the GSM World Congress and CeBIT and all over the place. So it wasn't hard, but I'd get myself invited to speak why Google doesn't know anything about search. All right, I'm not really going to throw a brick at the Google window, but I would get up there and maybe you might go down to Hall 106 to hear this crazy Bennett guy. And so I would say, do you understand what Google is? It's Boolean word terms. Let me show you what that is. And you do a whole Boolean word search string and show them how they can, start to quantify and get down to something. Now, let me show you that compared to building folksonomies or building taxonomies or taxonomies on the fly or semantics. By the end of the hour, they think, oh, these guys are pretty smart. Maybe I should talk to them. They're doing something a little different. And so again, for that company, I helped them pivot their own brand into medical research, legal research, places that were not Google strong. Again, sell where they aren't, Casio 101, and go down those rabbit holes.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess the other thing I wanted to ask you is, I know that you've also expanded business in emerging markets, throughout Africa and Asia. And you mentioned that a lot of the businesses that happen is like B2B and it's based on trust. So how did you end up managing relationships for businesses and gaining that trust, especially when you've got new tech coming in that, maybe hasn't really been gone mainstream to have been validated, but you got to build relationships with people, and you also are told you got to make money, Bennett, you make this happen. So anything around that, how do you build trust in emerging markets? And it must have been tough, right? Culturally differences and
but it depends on what you have and what you can apply to the market.
Okay.
Huawei was kind of nice. We got all the telecom kit. That was one thing. In every country in Africa, everybody, if you're Vodafone or Safaricom or, I forget who the South African guy was, there's typically 3 or 4 in every country. They all compete with each other. They all buy just my stuff, and my people run their networks for them as an outsourced business. So my job became think of ways that they could kill each other so they could buy more of my stuff. Fun job. So I would take a different positioning. I'd take one and say, okay, we can give you a search capability, which you can then sell the results to your customers. Then I go to another one and say, look, no, you don't want to do that. You want to be the trusted guy. You want to keep their information secure. And then you want to offer them a menu of goods and services that they can use with their information, how to better run their home or better manage their finances or better run, when is it time for grandma to take her meds? So that's the positioning, the market positioning. Differentiation is one big way.
Right.
The other, I was very lucky at the time with Huawei, with mobility, and we started a lot of education. Young African kids who didn't have anything to do. Hey, come here. We will teach you how to code. You can build your own mobile app. You can build your own African whatever, and managed to put together the largest deal in the history of Huawei. So the IPTV guy took ill, and they asked me to go to Namibia, to Windhoek, and speak in his place. And the CEO for the association got up and talked about how expensive content was, how hard it was, and they couldn't afford American or even Chinese content. And I got up after him, and I just took my presentation and threw it away and said, George is right. So I talked about the future. And I said, okay, eventually Tom Cruise, Minority Report, where you've got nanite technology and the wall behind you becomes the screen and it knows who you are with AI. I went and described an entire future, and the crowd is getting quieter and quieter and quieter. And I said, who's going to control that, you or the mobile guy?
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. I'm Huawei. I want to sell you satellite head-end equipment. I want to sell you servers and storage and yada, yada, yada. So are you a broadcaster or are you in the content business?
Right.
And then I said, what if we took all the content? How much content do you have in Nigeria? You got 100 man years of television shows and movies, right? Yeah. How much you got there in Kenya? About the same.
Right.
Tanzania. Oh, we got, 60 years. What if we could package that all up, digitize it, and you could sell? Tanzania, you could market and sell your stuff into Kenya. And it became the largest community cloud deal in the history of Huawei. A lot of education. I've got other people selling it. I got other people marketing it under their brand, but I'm raking in the cash. I'm out of net. Telecom is you sit in the middle and you have billions of packets flowing through you. You're the mafia. You want to take a tiny little taste of each and every one. And and that's why you need, 7 billion minutes a minute in order to have enough money to make, because your profit margin is at the 0.000001. You need a lot of packets in order to pay for dinner at the end of the day, but it does add up. And so it's the concept of the business. Again, quit trying to be Google and figure out a way that you can go to market, be unique, but go to market in a way that is unique, that is protected, that is hard for other people to copy. And then find ways for other people to spend time and money getting the word. And it doesn't have to be pretty. I did my own startup doing international mobile roaming bypass. At the time, if you got on a plane, you went to Germany, it cost you $6 a minute to call home. Okay, I could do it for 50 cents.
Yeah.
And my cost was less than a penny. And I would hire high school kids to ride the trains, the commuter trains, and hand out flyers to everybody who was carrying a briefcase. Not pretty, not sexy, but it worked. And my entire cost for putting the business together was about $1 million, and I think I sold it for $12 million. It's not flashy, but at the end of the day, we made a success.
Well, going off on that, you mentioned that oftentimes in the past you didn't get a big budget or hardly any money at all. Why is that? Why? I mean, you're there to help build a business and to earn revenue. Why did you not have much of a budget? I mean, it happens with a lot of startups these days that they say,
sure. Again, I'm an intrapreneur,
right.
startup within a big company.
Right.
And the big companies, with the exception of Huawei, were all failing. They were all losing money. I got hired into BT Infinite, and the guy said, welcome aboard. Great. Why did you take the job? It was that bad. I mean, Unisys, they lost $7 billion. They hired me and said, okay, we don't know what to do. Go figure it out. We'll give you 2 people, no budget. And the way I got it funded was just pure damn luck, and don't discount luck. I had to go to see Microsoft and to see their mobile guys, and they were late. And into the room walked Bill Gates. Hi, Bennett. My guys are hung up, so I didn't want to keep you waiting. Granted, Unisys made the only NT-based mainframe in the world, so we were kind of tied at the hip with Uncle Bill. But he was kind enough to come and talk to me, and gave me his view of mobility. And I told him what I wanted to do. 2 meetings later, I got a pen and coffee mug and a check for $12 million, and that's how I got to fund MOSA. So don't discount being lucky.
Right.
Don't depend on it. Try to find it, but don't discount.
Right. So then, these days, when it comes to, I mean, you work with some well-established companies, but when in early stage, how much focus do you put on brand, or as you mentioned, is it just build relationships, connect with customers,
Yeah,
maybe
build
brand?
relationship.
Yeah.
Why is brand important? Forgive me. I'm sorry. It's not important. Brand is a lifetime story of your organization. Who are you? What do you stand for? And you can't influence, and one bad thing takes it down. So it's yes, it's something you manage. I have never understood the marketers. Yes, I understand the marketers that talk about brand and it's worth X. Baloney. It's kind of funny. The Huawei and brand. And in 2012, I had friends in the Department of State who said, don't take the job. And then about 2013, there started to be a lot of rumblings. Huawei's a bad guy. Don't buy their stuff. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking around and I see, engineers. I got 60,000 engineers. Yeah, I know a lot of them are just literally sleeping with their hand on the mouse, but they're really playing solitaire. And my CTO was a former Navy SEAL and had been the CIO of 2 of the world's largest banking chains. And the CIO was a 35-year IBMer and former Canadian military. And I'm like, where are the bad guys? We actually, Huawei has an adversarial relationship with the Chinese government. ZTE, if you want to get Huawei to give you the best price, just have the ZTE guys sitting in your front in your lobby when they come to visit you, because they hate each other, because ZTE is the government. Again, as a customer of Huawei, you got to know how to manipulate them. So, but that brand, and my advice to Mr. Wren was, we have to use humor. We have to say, this is so ridiculous. 1, 2, because they came to us and they came to me literally and said, we would like you to install the Law Enforcement Access Protocol, LEAP. Every piece of kit in the West, HP, IBM, Cisco, they all have the LEAP access, which is a backdoor. I'm sorry, for Huawei, we do sell to Libya and Iran, and we sell to the other 5 billion. We can't do that. This is who we are. And it is pure, under the Trump administration, pure politics, pure BS. And it's bad for business. The result is you have almost developed an us and them, us or them mentality around the world. And look at how it has fractured the AI industry. Chinese aren't playing in the sandbox anymore. They're going off on their own tangent. And it's always interesting when that happens. If you look at some of the software companies and the companies that came out of Israel or came out of South Africa, especially South Africa during apartheid, they have a very different view of how to solve problems, especially with their software. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. It's not good for business. It's not good for things like Web3, because you're not going to have the interchange and cooperation necessary. And you're never going to have it adopted until you get that. The only hope is For me, China, which has a huge counterfeiting problem, is already saying, okay, we're going to go down this road ourselves and do our own digital currency.
Right. Right.
Bad
they
for the
have,
blockchain
yeah.
or the crypto guys, they're out. Good for everybody else and really good for the Chinese government because they're going to know what Arthur does and what Arthur spends his money on to the penny. And trust me, they are watching.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so until you get that adoption, I think it's going to be very difficult for things like Web3 to get a real big foothold.
Right, right. Well, if we take a look into the future, you just talked about you had a room full of people, accountants, future accountants, who had very little knowledge around AI, blockchain, well, maybe more in AI, but blockchain and crypto. But besides, so do you think then that is the biggest challenge? Is in tech itself, it could solve many different tech problems. Like you were saying, Huawei was building blockchain for supply chain. And everyone wants to use it for something different. Whether or not they need to work all together, it's not really necessary. But to really go mainstream, do you think it'll happen? Well, how do you think it will happen? Is it going to be a global currency that's used, or no one? Everyone's just trying to protect their own, like China. Very specific problem. Yeah,
Everybody will want to protect their own. Every
yeah,
government wants to protect their own.
yes,
And you will have cooperation, but there has to be the government oversight.
right,
No
exactly.
brand is going to control that. I'm sorry, but as soon as it gets big and profitable, the big boys will come in and copy it or buy it, and they will squash everybody else.
Right.
Just the way the game is played.
Survival of
You
the
can,
fittest.
yeah,
In which,
and they've got more money and feet, and again, a lot more. It's kind of funny, Huawei, they wanted to sell into enterprise.
uh,
And I laughed. I literally laughed in the boardroom. And they're like, what? And I said, you understand my previous position. I was with a company called Avnet. One of the, there's Avnet, Ingram Micro, and Tech Data.
Mhm.
Tech Data has since bought the Avnet technology business. So, and they're the same size, but Avnet was 10 times more profitable. Avnet doesn't carry 100,000 different manufacturers. They only carried 34. And they only carried 34 because those are the ones that they made the most money from.
yeah,
They made money selling the stuff to the VAR or systems integrator, but they made more money from IBM or Hewlett Packard or Cisco or whoever. So, the blockchain is, what's your market? Is it supply chain? Okay. Is it currency arbitrage? Okay. Is it weather derivatives trading? Okay. But again, you better partner with the people already in that who have the trusted, who has the best trust with the person paying the money.
right,
That's your customer.
right,
And if you don't have it, then you need to get in and you need to make, if you've got it, Arthur, then I need to come and find a way to give my stuff to you to make you look better and pull me along with it.
right.
So stop, again, you're talking about brand. Forget your brand. Do you want brand or do you want money? I want money.
That's
And I'll
true.
figure, and again, you can always slice and dice. Again, Infonet, we had frame relay. Well, we had 26 different flavors. If you wanted a sub 500 millisecond delivery, oh, you're doing voice over IP, so you want a sub 100 millisecond. That's a different price. Oh, you want best effort, slice, and then dice in the other direction. Find your niches. In telecom, there are so many small actors out there. You and I are both from the Pacific Northwest. A better example is California. If you could find the expat Vietnamese living in Southern California who want to call home and you could get all their business, man, you'd have a great business at the end of the day.
Right.
And their telecom is the small guys in telecom like Otello. Their business is totally based on the expats, Turkish people living in Germany who want to call back home. That's their business.
Right.
And so they price for it. They buy, they buy network for that. You find the tail of the business and you sculpt your business for that. The blockchain guys are going to have to learn and figure out how to do this rather than trying to be Google and do everything. Again, search.
Yeah.
Don't try and be search for everybody, George. Go sell. Let's go sell to the medical guys. Let's go sell to the guys who want to do research into law and patent, not just law, but patent law. And they want to dive deep on the go down the rabbit hole on that.
Right.
So you got to really understand who wants this and why.
Yeah. So I guess at that point, it's just trying to figure out where do you fit in the value chain. So like you are mentioning, are you at the source where Google is like, gobbling up all the business, or are you somewhere in the middle where you're serving a vertical where you're actually making some impact based on what you can do as a business?
Yeah.
Where no one's addressing. Yeah.
I keep going that, and I keep going back to that that formula: hardware plus software plus smart people equals something unique in the market. So if you're software, your blockchain software, okay, I want hardware guys to sell it. Who are going to be the smart people? My guys or your guys? We need to partner with some consulting firm to do the smart people. Or is it, I can do this part and I can bring in a group of partners to do that part, and those are cards on the desk. Which one are you, and how are you going to play and appeal to the other two?
Right.
The equals something unique is your differentiation in the market.
Right.
And from that comes your marketing story, your customer journey, yada, yada, yada.
Okay. So looking at where technology is today and understanding that it'll take some time for things to go mainstream, and it may probably look very different than what people expect from what it looks like today. What do you think are, just name some of the top opportunities to earn revenue? I mean, besides, as a blanket statement, you're saying go out and solve something that someone else is not solving for, right? But where do you see technology really creating opportunities to earn revenue in today's market?
Making things easy for an aging population certainly in America, but in Europe as well, Japan, those are going to be huge issues. And it has to be idiot proof, because people, if you talk to my mother-in-law, she can't operate her cell phone. I have trouble with it, and I helped invent the damn thing. I just use it as a phone. I mean, I've got a lot of apps on it too, and but it's a young person's thing, and so you got to understand what your market is, and the people with the money are aging. So how are you going to use whatever your technology is to appeal and make their life easier, and then make it bang on simple and easy for them to do it? There's a lot of simple things. This two-factor, just authentication, RF-based biometrics. If we have the technology, we had it 20 years ago. I can send a radio, use Bluetooth. I can scan your blood markers, which are 100,000 times more unique than your retina. Just identification, medical charts, medical records, interchange of medical records. Those are gold mines. Those are gold mines for blockchain.
Right.
And, so getting in with somebody like Clear to put that in, and Clear powered by the ABC blockchain. Okay, people don't know what it is, but maybe this is better. This helps Clear be better. This helps Clear differentiate. I mean, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and this is what needs to be exploited for success.
Yeah.
The early adapter success.
Right.
Start speaking at college universities.
Okay.
Go see graduate accounting students and tell them what the hell is going on out there.
Right.
They understand AI, and I told them it's coming for your job. If anything you can do is repetitive, a computer can do it faster and cheaper than you. Get out of it.
Yeah. Right.
You don't do accounting, do accounting and law. Doing, complex estate planning. It's use your accounting for something else.
Right.
Every marketer in the world, every sales guy, VP in the world needs an accountant by his side to help him they can't, 99% of these guys, of CMOs cannot take apart a balance sheet.
Right.
Or understand, when they read an annual report, is this company really in trouble, or where are they weak, or where are they strong?
Right.
I was fortunate to get that training, and you have to have it to succeed. Certainly, to be able to succeed at a large level.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I think we can end it there. And I want to thank you for your time. Actually, it seems like you've got a lot of experience, especially in the corporate sector, and which a lot of these early stage can learn from. And I don't know how does it feel? I mean, well, let me ask you one last question. Like, you're doing a lot of advising for emerging tech, maybe different markets. What do you see that's going out there? What's exciting? What excites you?
A lot of his culture. And the one point we didn't get on is to talk about certainly in product marketing and marketing, by most people use a matrix marketing. They've got a product and a product manager and then a director on top of that.
Right.
I learned early on 20 years ago at Unisys, the best team I ever had, I organized by how I made money.
Yeah.
I doing mobile, okay, I had enterprise, I had finance, I had lifestyle, all the games and fun stuff, and then I had infrastructure.
Right.
So I got 4 guys in charge of each of those business areas. I gave each of them their own technology head. I controlled the factory. I had 150 engineers or 1,500 engineers that went and built the stuff. And every week we would get together and talk about what we're going to do, what's our top 10 we're going to work on. And it was always what's going to give us the biggest bang, the fastest for the least amount of money.
Yeah.
And the
That
other
makes
one
sense.
is, the other is continuous improvement processes as a culture. And bringing that, Huawei, that was a big success. Is everything you do when you win the bid, that's when you start going back and start asking yourselves why, how can we make this better? How can we respond better? Who is it? Oh, Avis. I'm in here in Florida. We got hurricanes. I have to reschedule. As soon as we're off of this, I got to reschedule a rent-a-car. And it is based on a 2-factor. After I log in, after I put in my passcode, it still wants to send a text to my mobile phone. What a pain in the backside. What if I'm on my mobile phone? I got to take down the screen and bring up another one just to do your stupid 6-letter code. My God, that's idiotic.
That's
It's
true.
dumb
That's
stuff
true.
like that some product marketer is smiling and patting himself on the back for, and I'd like to shoot the dumb bunny.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a point that I think in some cases, there isn't a product marketer. I often find I worked for IBM for some years. A lot of the implementation of things in a software product is kind of decided by the developers or someone on the tech side saying, "Oh, this should be good. Oh, this sounds like a nice
And
feature."
that's the recipe for disaster.
Right. I talked to the sales guy. They said the customers want this, so let's build it. Right.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
you need to talk to the VP or whoever who's budget, who's going to get fired if he doesn't make the number and commit to it.
Yeah. Right.
And that's a very different animal.
Right.
Yeah, that is an absolute recipe for you're gonna die a miserable, horrible death. It's the worst. It's the owner, inventor, entrepreneur that is the toughest animal in the world because they they chase the bright, shiny light.
Yep.
And they never see anything else.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
can't tell them that they're it's like talking to a 6-year-old. There's a wall there. Yeah. You're riding your bike. Yeah. You're gonna hit the wall. Yeah. Knock yourself out.
All right, Bennett. Hey, it's a pleasure having you on the show and kind of, getting all this information out of you that I will share with my audience. Love to have you on the show again. And yeah, stay safe and through this hurricane. Probably won't affect you much. But yeah.
Yeah, it'll be bad tonight and then a little tomorrow, but it should be all right. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Hey, so that concludes this episode of the Startup Voyage podcast. I would like to thank all of you for listening to this episode, and I'd really appreciate it if you leave any type of comments that you'd like to share because it helps to feedback on how I deliver these podcasts.